My fiancée chose to go to a party with her male best friend after my operation. I called off the wedding, gave her back the ring, and kicked her out. 3 months later, she came crying. Okay, folks, get ready for this tragedy. I hurt myself at work and had to get surgery. While I was getting better, my fiancée went out with her best friend to have fun. She said, "You want to ruin my night because you're insecure." I let her have fun while I took everything apart between us. This is what happened. I'm a 32-year-old man that works for the power company as a lineman. I've been working with high voltage for 8 years. Good pay and benefits, but the job may be tough when you least expect it. 3 months ago, I learned the hard way when the casing for a transformer broke and I fell 15 feet onto concrete, breaking my left shoulder, 3 ribs, and giving me a concussion that made me sight double for 2 weeks. The fall happened during what should have been a normal maintenance call to replace a blown fuse. The weather was just right. The equipment worked okay. However, the mounting bracket was corroded more than it looked. As soon as I placed weight on it, it fell apart like a biscuit. When you're falling backwards with 40 pounds of gear strapped to your body, 15 feet doesn't seem like much. The safety harness grabbed me, but the rapid stop hurt my shoulder so much that I heard it snap before I felt the agony. I fell hard on the concrete pad around the transformer, and everything went dark for about 10 minutes. Rick, my crew chief, found me face down and barely awake, babbling about how I saw 2 of everything. The boys informed me later that I kept asking if the fuse was in, like my brain was on autopilot, even though I was pretty much knocked out. Rick said I looked like I'd been hit by a truck, with blood flowing from my ears and my left arm hanging at a bizarre angle that made everyone sick. The workers' comp forms were a nightmare. 3 separate doctors, 2 insurance adjusters, and a company safety inspector who kept asking if I had followed the right steps. Rick was there for me the whole time, making sure that some desk jockey didn't try to pin worker fault on me. He told me in private that the company had been cutting corners when it came to checking equipment. "You are not responsible for this accident." The paramedics told me that I was lucky the harness worked, else I would have had fractured bones all over. The doctor in the ER was an older man who had seen a lot of construction accidents. He didn't hold back. He looked at the x-rays and exclaimed, "Your shoulder's basically hamburger. We're talking about reconstructive surgery, months of physical therapy, and you might never get full range of motion back." The surgery took 4 hours. They had to rebuild the socket with pins and screws. And when I woke up, my whole upper body felt like it had been taken apart and reassembled by someone who'd lost the instruction manual. I'd been with my now ex-fiancée Roxy, 29, female, for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Before my accident, things seemed good enough. I made good money as a journeyman lineman. She worked part-time doing social media for some yoga studio, making maybe $25,000 if she was lucky. When we moved in together 2 years ago, it made sense for me to handle the major bills since my credit didn't suck, and I actually had steady income. I was pulling down about $85,000 a year with overtime while she was making rent money at best. Everything was in my name. The lease on our decent 2-bedroom apartment, utilities, her car payment on the Jeep Cherokee I co-signed for, cell phones, insurance, you name it. She contributed to groceries and handled her own shopping, which honestly wasn't much since I was basically funding her lifestyle. The Jeep alone was costing me $400 a month, but she needed reliable transportation for her part-time gig. Thought I was being a good provider, setting us up for marriage like my old man taught me. But there was always this one massive red flag that I kept making excuses for, her male best friend, Dorian. This guy was 30, worked some dead-end job at a bike shop, and acted like he was in a relationship with my girlfriend. They had been best friends since college, and according to Roxy, their bond was sacred and unbreakable. He had full access to the apartment like he lived there. I'd come home from a 12-hour shift working storm damage and find him on my couch drinking my drinks, playing my PlayStation. When I brought up boundaries, Roxy acted like I was being controlling. The bike shop where Dorian worked was one of those trendy places that charged $200 for basic tunyups and acted like they were saving the environment by fixing rich people's weekend hobby bikes. He would constantly brag about being a cycling expert and alternative transportation advocate. But the dude drove a beat-up Honda Civic and only rode bikes when he was getting paid for it. My buddy Nate saw right through the setup from day one. He'd been warning me about Dorian since they first met. Dudes marking his territory. He told me after watching Dorian rearrange my living room furniture. Next thing you know, he'll be pissing on your couch to claim it. The dude was always there. Date nights, he would show up or call with some emergency trying to have a quiet weekend. He texting every hour or just walking in unannounced. I started feeling like a guest in my own place. But every time I said something, Roxy hit me with the "you're being insecure" speech. What really got under my skin was how he'd make himself at home with my stuff. I'd buy a case of good drinks, come home the next day, and half of it would be gone because Dorian had stopped by to hang out with Roxy. My PlayStation controller started showing wear from his gaming sessions. Even my Netflix recommendations got screwed up because he was constantly watching his weird indie documentaries and foreign films on my account. Here's what really screwed with my head. Whenever we had any disagreement, she'd immediately call him for backup. Mid-con conversation, she'd literally say, "Hold on. I need to talk to Dorian about what he thinks." Not her mother, not her sister. Dorian. Always Dorian. When we were picking out engagement rings, he came along to help Roxy choose something she'd love. When we looked at wedding venues, guess who tagged along with opinions about what would make the day perfect for Roxy? The guy was basically planning my wedding with my fiancée while I paid for everything. My buddies at work noticed it too. They'd ask why I let some other dude have so much access to my woman, but I kept telling myself I was being the mature, secure boyfriend. Rick would just shake his head and say, "Brother, you're being way too cool about this situation." Nate was more direct about it. "You're paying this chick's bills so she can play house with another dude," he said during one of our poker nights. That's not being That was my first mistake. After my accident, I was about to learn just how wrong I was. 6 weeks post-surgery and I was still pretty messed up. Couldn't lift anything over 10 pounds. Needed help getting dressed and the pain meds made everything foggy. The doctor said full recovery would take 3 to 4 months minimum, possibly longer if I didn't follow orders and rest. The power company had me on workers' comp, so money wasn't an immediate issue, but being stuck at home unable to work was driving me crazy. I'm not the type to sit around watching daytime TV and feeling sorry for myself. The workers' comp covered about 2/3 of my regular pay, which was still enough to handle all our bills, but it felt weird not having that steady paycheck routine. The physical therapy was brutal. 3 times a week, some sadistic therapist named Derek would put me through exercises that felt like medieval torture. Simple stuff like lifting my arm above my head became these massive challenges that left me exhausted and frustrated. Derek kept saying pain is just weakness leaving the body, but mostly it just felt like pain being a dick about staying put. "We're rebuilding you from scratch," he'd say while manipulating my arm in ways that made me see colors. The exercises had names like wall crawls and pendulum swings that sounded harmless but felt like someone was torturing me with medieval tools. My crew at work was good, though. They'd rotate stopping by with food, drinks, and updates on who was screwing up what job sites. Rick, my crew chief, brought a case and told me straight up, "Take your time, man. We've all seen guys rush back too early and end up twice as messed up. The job will be here when you're ready." But here's where Roxy's true character started showing. Before my accident, she was at least somewhat attentive, made dinner sometimes, watched movies with me, acted like she wanted to be there. But during my recovery, it was like I became this inconvenient burden she had to deal with. She'd complain about having to pick up prescriptions, sigh dramatically when I asked for help with basic stuff like changing bandages, and spent most of her time texting Dorian. Meanwhile, Dorian was over constantly, supposedly helping, but really just hanging out while I sat there like a broken spectator in my own life. The prescription runs became this huge drama every time. She'd act like driving to CVS was some massive inconvenience, even though she barely worked and had nothing else going on. I have to go all the way across town. She'd complain about a pharmacy that was literally 10 minutes away. The breaking point came when I overheard her on the phone with her friend one afternoon. I was napping in the bedroom and woke up to her voice in the living room. "I know, it's so hard. He's so needy right now, and I can barely do anything fun. I feel like I'm stuck here playing nurse." Playing nurse to her injured fiancé who got hurt working to support both of us. She was treating my recovery like babysitting a difficult child instead of caring for the man she was supposed to marry. That's when my buddy Nate started coming around more. Dude, he said one afternoon while Roxy was out running errands. Your girlfriend's treating you like a freaking houseplant. At least plants get watered regularly. Nate's the kind of friend who will tell you your haircut looks stupid and help you move a couch on the same day. He'd been watching the Dorian situation from the beginning, making comments I'd ignored because I thought I was being mature. Now, with me laid up and Roxy showing her true colors, Nate wasn't holding back anymore. The real game changer came 3 weeks into my recovery when my big sister Haley showed up unannounced. She lives in Denver, works in tech sales, and apparently Nate had called her when he realized how bad things were getting. "Holy, you look terrible," was the first thing she said, walking into our apartment like she owned the place. Dorian was there naturally playing my PlayStation while I struggled to open a water bottle one-handed. Haley took one look at the situation and her expression went dark. Haley's got this presence that makes grown men in boardrooms second-guess themselves. And seeing her unleash that energy on Dorian was like watching a shark notice blood in the water. "Let me get this straight," she said, dropping her suitcase and staring Dorian down. "My brother is 6 weeks out from surgery, can barely use his left arm, and you're here playing video games?" Dorian mumbled something about helping out, but Haley wasn't having it. Helping out by occupying his gaming system and drinking his stuff. That's not helping. That's freeloading with extra steps. When Roxy walked in an hour later, Haley was in the kitchen making actual food while I sat at the table actually being taken care of properly for the first time in weeks. "Oh," Roxy said, clearly not expecting to see Haley. "I didn't know you were coming." "Yeah, funny how that works," Haley replied without looking up from the stove. "When your fiancé gets seriously injured and you're too busy playing house with bike shop boy to mention it to his family." Haley stayed for a week. She cooked, helped with my physical therapy exercises, told Dorian to get lost every time he showed up, and generally reminded me what it felt like to have someone actually give a damn about my well-being. What happened next would be the final test, and having Haley there to witness it was perfect. Friday started normal enough. Roxy was actually being somewhat helpful. Made coffee, helped me shower without too much attitude, even seemed like she was in a decent mood. I thought maybe Haley's presence had reminded her how to act like a decent human being. Around 2 p.m., I was feeling more sore than usual and asked if Roxy could grab my pain meds from the bedroom. That's when the mask started slipping. "Can't you get them yourself?" "I'm trying to get ready," she murmured, barely even looking up from her phone. Haley, who was sitting on the couch reading, looked up slowly. "Get ready for what?" "It's 2 o'clock. A show. I'm going with Dorian." "That's interesting." About 4 p.m. Dorian came. I'm sitting on the couch in sweats with my arm in a sling, watching another man get ready for a night out with my fiancée in my own bathroom. They both appear like they're going on a date when they get dressed and ready to go around 5 p.m. That's when Roxy revealed the big news. "Actually," she said, suddenly not looking me in the eye, "we were thinking of getting a hotel downtown after the show. It'll be really late and it's easier than trying to get back here." The silence in the room was deafening. Haley slowly turned to look at me, then at Roxy, then back at me. "She just told you she's spending the night in a hotel with another man while you're 6 weeks out from surgery and can barely lift your arm," Haley said, her voice deadly calm. "Am I understanding this correctly?" "Haley, stay out of this." I stared at Roxy and waited for her to understand what she had just said to prove that she cared about the man she was going to marry. "I know you're still healing, but I can't let Dorian down. He has been planning this for months and has even made a reservation for the accommodation. It's only one night. It's fine." I said coldly, "Have fun." Roxy responded, "Good," and picked up her overnight bag. "I'm delighted you're not going to make a big deal out of this." As the door closed behind them, they laughed about something and left together. Haley looked at the closed door for a long time before turning to me. She stated that was the most rude thing she had ever seen. "Please tell me you're not going to sit down and worry about Haley. I've got this." I was looking at the engagement ring she left behind because it didn't go with her clothing. Then I grinned. Things were about to change. And for the first time in months, I was ready for it. 30 minutes later, Nate came and saw Haley's face. He knew right away that things were about to get real. He He told me that my sister looked like she was about to kill someone. I guess Princess finally showed who she really is. Dorian is staying in a motel with her for the night, and Milo can hardly move his arm. Haley said it straightforward. Yes, I do want to kill someone. Nate smiled like it was Christmas morning. At last. I've been looking forward to this talk for months. I like you, Haley. Now we both feel the same way. How quickly can we get rid of this cheating? I never loved my sister more than I did then. We began with paperwork. Haley compiled lists and pulled receipts while Nate took pictures of everything in the place. I write down everything. So, we have the dates and amounts of money spent on almost every big item in the house. Holy, Nate murmured as he looked through the receipts. You bought everything in this store. What did the princess add? Her charisma that sparkles. Haley said that most of the complaints were about STDs, which made Nate snort. Haley was so ruthless that even Nate was impressed. She had worked in corporate sales for years and knew how to ruin someone's life with paperwork and phone calls. It was like seeing a great craftsman utilize the right tool for every project. I began with the passwords. All of it, Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, Amazon Prime. Haley changed everything for me. Streaming services, social media accounts, online banking, and even the Wi-Fi password. Nate and I worked on the tangible things while she worked on the digital scorched earth campaign. The significant change was the lease on the unit. I had choices because it was only in my name. Nate took out his phone and called his cousin Danny, who worked in property management. Yes, I need you to explain how to evict a tenant to me. If someone wished to get rid of an unlawful occupant, the talk was helpful. It turned out that Roxy wasn't on the lease and hadn't established legal tenancy. She didn't have any official mail or utility bills in her name, so she was effectively a guest who had overstayed her welcome. Haley went over the eviction notice we had written and stated, "This is a work of art. Professional, thorough, and absolutely devastating. She's going to lose her mind." The real masterpiece was canceling the wedding. Haley took charge of this, utilizing her business skills to talk to vendors. She said after an hour of phone calls that I had explained the matter in a professional way. Most of them were surprisingly kind. It looks like brides leaving grooms who are hurt isn't often enough to be jaded about. We were able to get back over $18,000 in deposits and fees. Haley wrote down everything she needed for the demand letter she was already writing. The place was surprisingly okay with that. The manager actually said, "Son, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I can spot a disaster wedding from a mile away. You dodging this bullet is probably the best thing that could happen to you." Nate helped me pack everything that was mine, while Haley coordinated like a general planning a military campaign. Nate found it on the dresser and exclaimed, "Oh, look, she left her engagement ring. Guess it didn't go with her hotel outfit." "Pack it," I answered. "That's going back, along with a bill for everything else." Nate put all of Roxy's things in the car as Haley contacted a locksmith. Haley commented, "This is the most fun I've had since college," as we tried out the new locks. But she had one more surprise that shocked me. She showed us her laptop screen and stated, "I took the liberty of documenting Dorian's bike shop employment through public records. He makes roughly $28,000 a year and has 2 kids with 2 different women. He doesn't pay child support for either of them." "How the hell did you learn that?" Nate asked. "Facebook, LinkedIn, some creative Googling, and records from the courtroom. The person your girlfriend loves is a deadbeat dad who can't keep a job. When reality sets in, this should be interesting." The information about child support was really helpful. 2 different family court instances, each indicating that Dorian was always late with payments. One of the baby mothers had even made public accusations about him on social media. Haley had already set up for me to stay at my parents' house while everything got sorted out. "Do you want to know what the finest part is?" Haley remarked this as we took my things out. She believes she won. She had her night with Dorian. Shows that she could accomplish anything she wanted. Now she gets to see what life is like when she has to pay for it herself. Nate lifted his drink. To Haley, the sister I never had but always desired. Haley said, "To Milo for finally standing up for himself. We were in the front row for the real fireworks show. It was really peaceful on Saturday. Haley put off her trip so she could see the fireworks. We spent the day at my parents' house eating Mom's food and getting ready for what we all knew was about to happen. My folks were unexpectedly okay with the whole thing. Dad said it was time, and Mom started getting the guest room ready for me like I was returning home from college. They had never really loved Roxy, even if they had been nice about it. The explosion started on Sunday afternoon, and it was everything we had hoped for and more. The first communication was sent at about 1:00 p.m. Mo. I'm back at the apartment and I can't get in. Did you change the locks? My phone isn't working. What's going on? Call me. Oh, this is just the appetizer, Haley replied as she opened a drink around 1:30 p.m. Wait until she realizes how big this is. An hour later, the tone changed. This isn't funny. I had to borrow Dorian's phone to message you. My credit card declined. Nate read over my shoulder. That means she tried to use the card that's attached to your account. Beautiful. The image of Roxy's card getting declined at some restaurant in front of Dorian was satisfying in ways I didn't know were possible. But by evening, full panic had set in. Milo, please. I get that you're upset about the whole thing. Maybe I should have come home. But this is insane. You can't just lock me out of our apartment and cancel everything. I have nowhere to go and all my stuff is locked inside. Dorian said this is illegal and you can't just kick me out. We need to talk, please. Haley was taking notes in a notebook like she was grading a performance. Dorian said it's illegal. That's rich coming from a guy who's behind on child support. What's his legal expertise watching Judge Judy? Nate was getting regular updates from his network of friends who knew people who knew people. Apparently, Roxy and Dorian's triumphant return to our apartment had been a complete disaster. They'd shown up Sunday afternoon expecting to continue their romantic weekend, only to find themselves locked out of an empty apartment with an eviction notice taped to the door. Roxy's phone was dead. Her credit card didn't work, and she suddenly realized the extent of her financial dependence on me. According to my sources, Nate reported they had a massive fight right there in the hallway. She blamed Dorian for encouraging her to stay at the hotel. He blamed her for ruining a good thing by making you suspicious. And then Haley asked, fully invested in the drama. Then Dorian left her there, just packed up his stuff and drove home, telling her she needed to figure her out because he wasn't getting involved in her housing problems. Haley's laugh was evil. That's poetry. The same guy who'd been all over social media posting about their true friendship couldn't handle one afternoon of actual problems. Monday brought a new player into the drama, Rebecca, Roxy's toxic friend. She sent me a series of nasty texts calling me controlling, manipulative, and psychologically abusive. Haley read them and immediately pulled out her phone. Oh hell no. Nobody talks to my brother like that. Wait, what are you doing? I'm teaching this some manners. Haley's response to Rebecca was surgical. Hi, Rebecca. This is Milo's sister. I was there when your friend abandoned her injured fiancé for a hotel room with another man. Since you seem confused about who the victim is here, let me clarify. It's not the cheater. Maybe focus on helping your friend find a job instead of texting her ex-Zoxo. Rebecca went silent after that, but the drama was just getting started. Thursday evening, I was at my parents' house helping Dad fix their garbage disposal when we heard screaming from the front yard. Through the window, we could see Roxy marching up the driveway like she was leading a one-woman army. M.O., she cried, banging on the front door. I know you're in there. You can't just ruin my life and then run away. Haley opened the door. Oh, look who decided to show up. You bitch. It's all your fault, Roxy said. Be careful what you say, or I'll pull it out of your head. Where is Milo? Tell him to leave right now. Nah, he's fine. She started screaming and calling me every name in the book, and Dad had to threaten to call the police before she finally left. The next morning, Dorian sent me messages that were pure comedy gold, trying to defend Roxy and calling me insecure. I just said, she's yours now. Congrats. He never responded, but Roxy's parents were a different story. Her dad, Tom, actually called to apologize for his daughter's behavior while her mom, Linda, tried to make excuses. Tom shut her down hard. Linda, our daughter abandoned her injured fiancé for another man. End of discussion. 2 weeks later, Roxy was apparently doubling down on her choices in the most public way possible. She and Dorian were posting constantly on social media about their true love, trying to rebrand her cheating as some great romance. The posts were getting more desperate by the day. Finally found my soulmate captions with forced smiles. True love conquers all over photos that looked increasingly staged. Even their friends were starting to comment with confused reactions and side-eye emojis. The social media campaign backfired spectacularly. Family and friends could see right through the performance, especially when her own dad commented, "Interesting timing for true love right after abandoning your injured fiancé." Meanwhile, Nate had his own revenge brewing and it was diabolical. "Yo, Milo, remember how Dorian used to use your PlayStation all the time?" he asked with a grin that made me nervous. "Yeah. Why?" "Well, I may have done something while we were packing up your stuff." He pulled out his phone, showing me screenshots. "I logged into your PSN account on his profile and bought about $800 worth of games and DLC. Nate, what the hell? Relax. I used her credit card information that was saved on your account." He'd used her saved credit card information to buy about $800 worth of games and subscriptions for Dorian's gaming accounts. Charges that would keep hitting her for months until she figured out how to stop them. "You're evil," I said. But I was laughing. I prefer creative. Meanwhile, my life was actually getting back on track. The shoulder was healing faster than the doctors predicted. Derek, my physical therapist, was impressed with my progress and started pushing me harder. "Most guys your age would still be whining about lifting a coffee cup," he said during one session. "You're ready to get back to real work." By week 10, I was cleared for light duty. Rick called me personally with the news that a desk job had opened up in dispatch. Same pay, easier hours, and I could transition back to field work once I was fully cleared. The dispatch work was actually perfect for where I was mentally. I got to coordinate crews, handle emergency calls, and basically be the guy who kept everyone else from screwing up their jobs. Felt good being useful again, even if I wasn't climbing towers. House hunting became my new obsession. After years of renting and basically subsidizing someone else's lifestyle, the idea of building actual equity was intoxicating. My credit was solid. I had decent savings, and the real estate market was finally showing some properties in my range. It was a 12,200-foot ranch in a decent neighborhood built in the 80s, but well-maintained. 2 bedrooms, garage, small yard, and most importantly, mine. Every payment went towards something I actually owned instead of funding someone else's lifestyle. I mended it in her driveway in about 10 minutes, and she insisted on buying me dinner as thanks. For nearly a month, we went out on casual dates. Nothing serious, just a great person to hang out with that had their own apartment, work, and no desire in causing trouble. We stayed friends even when it inevitably ended. Rick started hinting that I might get a promotion to crew supervisor whenever I was ready to go back to work full-time because things were going so well. My parents were really happy with how everything was going. Mom kept sending me casseroles to help me get used to my new home, but she really just wanted to see me happy again. Dad would come by to see how my workshop projects were going and generally be delighted that his son had learned how to be an adult. I was finally able to sleep through the night for the first time in years because I didn't have to worry about other people's problems or relationship stress. The only things that reminded me of the Roxy issue were the occasional updates from friends we both knew. It seems that she and Dorian were having trouble with money, bickering all the time, and their social media presence had gone from desperate to non-existent. Haley told me on one of our Sunday phone chats that Rebecca asked about you last week. Wanted to know if you were seeing anyone. What did Rebecca say to her? That it wasn't her business and that she should probably stop pursuing her ex and deal with her own problems instead. By the 3rd month, life had settled into a nice pattern that I didn't know I needed. Work, house improvements, weekend barbecues with real pals, and no tolerance for anyone. At that moment, the universe decided to remind me that some stories don't have a neat ending. On Tuesday night, she showed up at my new house without warning. Nate was there to help me put in a new garage door opener, and we both heard a tentative knock that didn't sound like the strong woman I used to know. She looked terribly bad, very bad. Her hair was dirty, her clothing were old, and she was standing in a way that made me feel bad for her if I didn't know better. When I opened the door, she said, "Milo, I need to talk to you, please." Nate saw what was going on and remarked, "I'll be in the garage pretending I can't hear this train wreck." Even though things were bad, that made me grin. What she said next shocked me and was exactly what I expected. "I'm pregnant," she stated right away. Without even trying to ease into it, I just looked at her. "Congratulations. Why are you telling me?" That's when she started to cry. It's the ugly, desperate kind that comes from someone whose whole world has fallen apart. "It's Dorian's," she cried. "But he won't. He doesn't want to. He said it's not his problem." Shocking. Nate appeared in the doorway with perfect timing. Did she just say what I think she said? Yeah. The irony was perfect. Dorian, the same guy who'd been posting about their true love and meant-to-be relationship, had immediately bailed the moment real responsibility entered the picture. "Oh, this is rich," Nate said, not even trying to hide his amusement. Then came the part that made my skin crawl. "I know you're angry, but this baby needs a father. Milo, you're a good man. This child might need you to be their dad. This could work for us. I know what I did wrong. Promise." The nerve was amazing. She wanted me to take care of another man's child. The child of the man she picked over me when I was recovering from surgery. I said, "Let me get this straight." And Nate got closer because he could tell something good was about to happen. "You cheated on me with Dorian, got pregnant with his baby, and now that he's left you, you want me to be the father of his child?" She quickly responded it wouldn't be like that. We would be a family. The baby would belong to us. Nate made a noise that sounded like he was choking on his own spit. "Lady, you have some really big balls. I agree with you. She left me for Dorian when I was at my lowest." For months, they wrote about how great their relationship was. And now that he had shown himself to be the deadbeat everyone knew he was, she wanted me to clean up the mess. "How far along, though?" I said, mostly out of morbid curiosity. "For months," she said in a low voice. That meant she was pregnant about the same time she was uploading pictures of her and Dorian as soulmates. They were busy making this new problem while I was coping with the fallout from their betrayal. "No," I said simply. "Please, Milo, I have nothing. Rebecca kicked me out since I can't afford to pay rent. I'm in my car sleeping. I can't take care of a baby and I don't have anywhere to go. You really did make your bed in that motel room. Now you have to lie in it," I added coldly. "But I don't have to take care of the baby. I was done. Please call Dorian." Nate moved forward. "I believe it is time for you to go." She stared at both of us, seemed to know that begging wouldn't work, and finally showed some respect by leaving without saying anything else. Nate and I sat on my porch with a few drinks after she went. Man, that's not even karma. That's basically how natural selection works. That night, I called Haley to inform her what had happened. She answered right away and perfectly. Hold on. Dorian, the man who was her soulmate and real love, left her when she got pregnant." "Yes." Haley remained quiet for a while, but then she started to chuckle. "This is the most lovely finish I've ever heard, Milo. She received everything she wanted and nothing she desired. The poetic justice was amazing. Roxy had put everything on the line for Dorian, thinking he would be better than me. Reality had called her bluff in the most clear way possible. She had a steady relationship with a man who loved her, but she gave it up for an affair with a loser who couldn't handle his responsibilities. The last time I heard from friends of ours, she had moved back in with her parents and was working 2 jobs to support herself and the kid. Dorian had moved to a different city and didn't want to see any of them. The posts about real love were gone from social media. As for me, I'm doing better than ever. I'm dating someone new, the house is fantastic, and work is going well. Haley comes by a lot. Nate is still my partner in crime. And everything is just how I always wanted it to be, except for the extra weight I've been carrying for 4 years. The trash does take itself out sometimes. Edit. A few of you wanted to know about Nate's retaliation